He has spoken on the topics faith, family and freedom in Cuba, Belgium, Brazil, Congo, UK and all over the USA to crowds from 14 to 40,000. International leadership speaker, trainer and coach. Author of Learn to Raw Leadership, Attitude Hack, Live a More Excellent Life, 5 Battle Strategies of a Victorious Warrior. 2021 President's Lifetime Achievement Award recipient. Founding partner of the John Maxwell team. Toastmaster International Speech Competition semi-finalist. Founder of Tell It Like It Is TV, ThatGuyRocks.com and ThatGuySpeaks.com. Creator of Story Power TV, Transforming Grace TV, and Leading Leaders Podcast. Producer of 4 TV programs and podcasts for Liftable TV and World Trumpet Television as well as multiple social media channels. Please help me welcome J Loren Norris.
If you've ever been responsible for leading somebody who is extremely intelligent, also very adamant about their ideas, a principle, or a policy, and at the same time, very, very wrong, then you know how hard it is to be a mentor as a leader. And that's what we want to talk about in this episode of Leading Leaders.
Subscribe now for access to our extensive media library of leadership lessons promoting faith, family, and freedom. Begin your personal growth plan at StoryPowerAcademy.com for leadership development and communication skills training.
I'm J Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast, and I watch a lot of other podcasts, a lot of other videos and interviews and conversations. This morning I was watching a conversation with a very wealthy guy who started off with, well, basically nothing. In his words, I believe it's Czechoslovakia, maybe it's Yugoslavia. He's from Robert, from Shark Tank. Said his family came to Canada with basically nothing. And in his view, at 9 years old, it was just an adventure. It's a new place. I get to go on a boat. I get to go to another beautiful place and start over. But he said, we grew up in a village where literally the entire village shared one phone. And in the interview, he was asked, did you feel poor? And he said, I didn't know what poor was. I was just happy. I was filled with joy. I was living my life. My dad was the hardest working guy I'd ever met, even to this day. But I was just happy. And suddenly we realized that all of the trappings of life are comparative. In fact, he goes from that moment of saying, I didn't know that you were supposed to have a phone in every house. Having one for the village and being able to find the guy that had the only phone, that was a bit of a challenge in those days. Then he fast forwarded several years, and not intentionally contrasting this, but through the course of the conversation, he talks about when he finally made enough money to buy his first Ferrari and how excited he was about it. He wasn't trying to be braggadocious or egotistical or arrogant. He just said, I've worked really hard to have enough money to buy a used Ferrari. And so I invited my neighbor over, and he came, and I opened the garage and he looked at the car. He's like, wow, that is a beautiful car. Very nice car. I really like that model. And he said, come across the street and let me show you what I have. And he opened his garage door and had 2 brand new Porsches in the garage. Now, if you think for a moment as a leader, as an influencer, as someone who's speaking into the lives of others, how easy it is to contrast joy, contentment, when you live in a village where there's only one phone, against living in a neighborhood where you work your backside off to put a Ferrari in the garage only to find your neighbor has 2 Porsches instead. It's really easy to get caught in the trappings of life and think, well, I haven't made it yet, or I'm still working to get there, or I'm going to accomplish this someday. And of course, as a leader, you got to set those targets for yourself and for people around you. Of course, Robert went on to point out another thing too, and that was, he said, I've always been fit. I've always been in good shape. I've always taken care of myself physically, mentally, as well as financially. I've always been great at sales. And I always thought I had high energy until I went to a Tony Robbins event. Here's a distinction that I want all of you to get. He said, I thought I had high energy until I went to the Tony Robbins event because when he walked in the room, it was like, boom. I realized that my energy was all right here. His energy affected the entire room. Let me say that again. My energy was all right here. How many of us operate in a space where I'm working really hard to control my mood, my thoughts, my attitude, my outcomes, my successes? And we don't have a whole lot of projection into the lives of others with that accomplishment, with that success. And what Robert acknowledged about Tony Robbins was his ability to walk into the room and emanate that energy, not just around others, but into them. See, that's where the magnetism of leadership really begins to rise to the top. There are a lot of people, I believe maybe it was Madonna or Britney Spears, I think it was Britney Spears, the first one that I heard say, "I'm here to make my music, I don't care to be your role model." And when I heard her say that, I thought, given the number of records you've sold, the number of videos you've been on, the number of stages you performed on, the number of tickets that you've sold, the number of people who have flocked to you to pay attention to you, I don't know that you can avoid being a role model. I don't know that you can avoid leading them, influencing them. And if you think for a moment that with that mass of people paying attention to everything that you do, every relationship you're in, every song that you sing, everything you do when you think nobody's looking but the paparazzi is, if you think that you can kind of scuttle yourself away and avoid all that, you're sadly mistaken. The challenge is she's not the only one. And when you think about, I'm focused on the energy in me, my successes, my attitude, my advantages, and I'm not thinking about how what I do, say, and believe affects people around me, then you've missed a very important part of leadership. I know there are some people, their entire pursuit in life is their own financial gain. Their entire pursuit in life is, I just want to be the best piano player in the world. I just want to be the best golfer in the world. I just want to be the best football player in the world. I just want to be the best writer in the world. That's fine. But do you think that Stephen King didn't expect anybody to be influenced by what he did? R.R. Tolkien? C.S. Lewis? Do you think these people thought, I just want to be a great writer, but I don't really want to influence people. I don't really want to lead others? Of course not. Now, maybe on the football field, you would think, I just want to play the game, get the awards, put the money in the bank, and then sit back with my feet up. It's possible. But if you're the guy on the field that's playing the best, or soccer field, or the baseball field, or the volleyball court, if you're the best one on the team, scoring the points, doing the good stuff, you can't do that alone. You have to have the whole team. And in order for you to shine, the team's got to shine. Because we all know the ball hog, the one who wants everything to be about them, and they abandon the rest of the team. And what happens? The coach boots them off the team. Even if it's the coach's son or daughter, they get booted off the team because their ego gets bigger than their contribution. Don't let your ego get bigger than your contribution. Now, what inspired this conversation today? Yesterday, I was watching another interview. Two very world famous people. Both of them have made gazillions of times more money than I've ever made in my lifetime. One of them started off with a passion for one thing, one sport, and became one of the best in the world at that sport. Now, becoming the best in the world at that sport required a lot of discipline, a lot of diligence, a lot of hard work, a lot of hard hours. And getting that reward, if you will, was not just financial, but it was reputational. If I said the name, you would know it. I don't want this to be about that individual. I want this to be about a principle. See, that individual came in for an interview with a friend of his, been a guest on the show a couple of different times. And while he was in the interview, kind of laid out some of his ideas. Now, again, this champion is very intelligent. Father is very intelligent. accomplishments are pretty impressive. The amount of money, the net worth, the things they own, the things they control, pretty impressive. I'm nowhere close. But they're nowhere close to the person that was interviewing them. I want you to let that settle in for a minute. They're also about 10 to 15 years younger than the person interviewing them. And the people around the table kind of contributed to this depth of conversation. There was an incident that happened. I don't even want to talk about the incident, but the incident became a highlight of the conversation for the better part of an hour and a half. But what I really witnessed was someone with great wealth, with great influence, who'd built companies, who had hired, trained, replaced thousands of people, doing all they could to lead, someone who had a lot of influence, but were missing a couple of key components of leadership skill. The first of which, probably the most important of which, also the one that I have struggled with the most in my life, some in reality and some in perception, is humility. See, when you've got a strong intellect, when you've actually accomplished some things, that success leads to people looking at you going, I want to do what you do. I like the way you do it. I want to learn that skill. And if you have the Madonna, Britney Spears kind of attitude about being a role model, then you look at them and you're like, look, I just pay for the ticket, buy the album, and stay out of my life. I'm not here to put my entire life on display for you. I'm not here to tell you everything that's going on in my world. It's my private world. I'll live my life the way I want to live my life, and I don't really care what you think about my life. Just buy the tickets, come to the concerts, etc. And that arrogance, for lack of a better word, allows that person to isolate themselves, at least in their own imagination, and go, what's happening in my world is my business. And that kind of attitude was really on display in this interview. The incident precipitated global, at minimum, news sound bites. But in this individual, the constant refrain was, I didn't do anything wrong. I know it made the news, but I didn't do anything wrong. Now, trust me, I've been there on more than one occasion where I can look at the incident and I can fully justify what I did. And I've even called friends and said, here's the event the way I see it. What could I have possibly done wrong? And because I'm pretty good at arguing, I'm not a debater, I don't do debates, but I'm pretty good at arguing, and I'm pretty good at sales, and I'm pretty good at persuasion. Because all those things are true, even when I would call a friend and say, hey, how did I go wrong here? What do I need to do differently? How do I fix this? My ability to justify my own bad behavior, I was pretty good at convincing them I was right and everybody else was seeing the incident wrong. And that's really what I was seeing in this interview. It takes one to know one, right? I've been doing that for years. I get it. The other thing that I saw, though, was that the person who was a little more accomplished, the person who was a little more financially successful, the person who undoubtedly had a little bit more influence, leadership skill, passion, not just to be successful, but to lead. That person was doing all they could to speak into the other one, to say, look, I see better things for you. Ultimately, the advice that was given from 3 different people. 2 of them closer in age to the individual, 2 of them who've walked a very similar path to the individual, 2 of them who have also been mentored by the guy offering the advice. And one of them said, my life wouldn't be where it is if it hadn't been for him. I would have given up on me by this point if it hadn't been for him. Another one said, I was living the life you're living right now, and because of this mentor, I now want to settle down and have a family. my worldview is completely changed. Now, it's real easy to say, I didn't do anything wrong, to protect and defend and to argue. It's really easy, especially when you have a high intellect, to say, I'm going to accomplish, I'm going to succeed, I'm going to stuff money in the bank, I'm going to build businesses, I'm going to buy properties, I'm going to do all of these things, and I don't care what you think about it. That's really easy. Let me pull these two conversations together for a moment, because there's a contrast that, as a leader, you need to see. When Robert said, I was high energy, but all that energy was right here. And when I met Tony, I realized his energy infected the entire room. Contrast that with the mentor who's trying to correct someone who doesn't see what they've done wrong. And part of the reason is because the one who's being corrected has all the energy focused here. All the energy focused here. Intelligent? Yes. Successful? Yes. Financially well off? Yes. Known around the world? Yes. Someone whose words change the behavior of others? Yes. Significantly. And someone who has both used their wealth and their communication skills to master social media and influence the behavior of people they've never met. But do they have the willingness to alter the energy that they're infecting others with so that it's a positive result and not a negative? Or do they want to stay in that place where their ego says, I didn't do anything wrong. I'm going to defend me. I'm going to defend my choices. I'm going to defend my behavior. And at the point where you don't accept my defense, I don't care if you don't like me. I'm all done. I can check out. I can walk away. It's fine. I can step back into my own little shadow and live my life because I have all the means that I need, all the ability that I need, all the connections that I need. I don't have to play your game. Those are almost exact quotes. The challenge is, as a leader, mentorship isn't only one of the greatest things that you need. Somebody who can speak into your life and tell you, but you were wrong, and here's why. And tell you the hard truth. Someone who's a few steps ahead of you. If you don't know where you're going, ask someone who's been there. Now, here's the real challenge. If you have accomplished a lot and you're intelligent and you're intellectual and you're articulate, it's really hard for you to find somebody who can pull you up. It's really hard to find somebody. It's really hard to find somebody to match your own core values. If one of your core values is your faith, you're going to be really hard pressed to find that person who is successful, who's accomplished, who has proven credibility and credential, and still holds on to their faith. That's a big deal, though. And if faith informs your decisions, that's a really big deal. That's something you need to pay attention to as you're growing as a leader. Let me shift that to the other side, though. If you have reached that place where you have influence in the life of others, I don't care if it's 5 people on your block because you're part of the HOA, or 500 people in the company that you run, or 50,000 people who follow you on social media. I believe, and I'm pretty convinced that John Maxwell will tell you, and Brandon Dawson will tell you, and many, many others that I have studied, that I've followed, that I've had conversations with will tell you, as a leader, you can't stop here. You have an obligation as a leader, as an influencer, to reach out into the lives of other people. And whether they seek the advice or not, to at minimum, be the kind of person that they want to emulate. You are expected as a leader to live a life that others would look up to and go, man, I want that success. I want that money. I want that fame. I want that fortune. But am I willing to pay the hard price to get it? John Maxwell says people approach him all the time on the platform and they're like, man, I want to do what you do. And he asks a really tough question. Are you willing to do what I did so that you can do what I do? Even this champion that I'm talking about, I've heard conversations between them and other people, where they're like, well, you know, you stumbled your way into wealth and fame. And when he begins to express what it took to become the champion that he is, they're probably not 5% of people on the planet who would go through what he went through to accomplish what he's accomplished. Most people would back out way sooner and go, that is not for me. If that's the only path to become financially well off, to become an influencer, to become world famous, if that's the only path, I'm out. Obviously, there's not only one path. But if you've worked on that path and you've reached that place, now you have an obligation to help others. Not just to boost your own ego, not just to pad your own pockets, not just to build wealth. Nothing wrong with those things. But if all that energy is focused right here, you failed. You may have succeeded at putting money in the bank and making your name world famous, but you failed at leadership. Now, if you find yourself in that place where all your energy is here, all your focus is here, all your success is here, and you don't want to lead and influence people, I'm sorry. You already have. Now you got to own it. I'm sorry. You already have. Now you got to own it. I watch a lot of these cop videos. And the number of times that somebody has a 3 to 5 to 10, some of them 15-minute arguments on the side of the road. I'm not giving you my license. I refuse to identify myself. I'm not getting out of the car. They roll up their window. They're argumentative and disrespectful to the officer. And finally, when the officer gets a little help, they physically pull the door open. They physically pull the person out of the car. They physically put them in handcuffs. They put hands on them. They throw them in the back of the car and they take them to jail. And from the time they're drug out of the car to the time they're in the back seat, they suddenly have a fear of jail, a fear of jailitis. The power structure has tipped. And this person who said, I have the power to decide what's going to happen in my little world inside my car with my doors closed and my windows rolled up. And the reality sets in. And I'm not going to identify myself, and I'm going to give you a fake name or the wrong birthday, or I'm going to tell you I don't have my driver's license. I've seen many of these where they get dragged out of the car, thrown into the police car, and now they're under arrest. And because they're under arrest, their car can be searched without permission as a part of the arrest. And guess what they find? A driver's license. And often they'll find that that driver's license is attached to warrants, or that driver's license has been suspended. And this person thought, if I just argue my case, if I'm just boisterous, if I'm just loud, if I just continue to raise my voice, I can intimidate this reality out of existence. It doesn't work like that. I don't care how often, how loud, how vehemently you claim I did nothing wrong. At some point, you've got to realize the world is watching. And maybe the I did nothing wrong is looking at an isolated moment in time. And what you really need to do is back up 2 minutes, 10 minutes, 45 minutes, 5 hours. Is there a chance that if I'd done something different 5 hours ago, this moment would have never happened? Now, in this moment, I didn't do anything wrong, but maybe I shouldn't have been there at all. Maybe I shouldn't be hanging out with those people, going to those places, doing those things. Well, what did I do wrong? Well, nothing, except that you were with people who do those kind of things in those kind of places. Good leadership says, I realize when I'm in places like that, people are going to act a fool. There's going to be consequences. So my decision can't be made in that moment. As a leader, my decision has to be made before that. See, one of the challenges that everybody has is temptation. Is it a temptation to eat too much chocolate? Is it a temptation to give into another form of addiction? Is it a temptation to slide a little money to the left or slide a little money to the right? Legally, they call that embezzlement, right? Is it a temptation for you? So what do you do as a leader? You remove those temptations. You put yourself in an environment where those things are not tempting. Or you tell somebody, I don't want to be tempted by that, so just keep it out of my life. You've got to make those decisions, not in the moment of temptation, but long before that moment happens. I was chatting with someone last night who said, I went through a season of my life where I had to parent myself. I thought, well, that's an interesting phrase. Tell me more about that. And they said, well, I had to get up and put my shoes next to my bed. I had to get up and do these things every day just to make sure that I got back on a normal schedule of life. I don't remember who it was. It was probably one of the Navy SEALs. It was a book I was reading years ago. But he said, when I decided that I was going to change my life, I decided the first thing I was going to do is get up every morning at 5 o'clock and run a mile. He said, you know, when that alarm goes off at 5 o'clock, it's really hard to find your socks. It's really hard to find your gym clothes. It's really hard to decide to get out there and run. He said, but the discipline that I had was created by the fact that I would go to bed in my running clothes. All showered up, all clean, all ready to sleep in my nice pretty sheets, but in the clothes that I was going to run in. And my shoes to run in were right next to the bed. And so the minute I turned and put my feet on the floor, they were already next to my shoes or in them. And all of a sudden, all the resistance, all of the arguments, all of the things that would give me an excuse to just keep my energy right here. I'd made the decision hours before. Living up to that decision wasn't nearly as hard. I had made a decision to make a commitment. But by the time I put my clothes on to get in bed and my shoes next to the bed, I'd made a commitment to that decision. Look, if you're in leadership at whatever level, you've got to realize whether you asked to be a leader or not, whether your diligent pursuit was the skill and the craft and the art of leading, or it was just some other success that you were after. If what you do now, if the level of accomplishment that you've reached right now means people look to you and go, help me get better, help me be where you are, help me move forward, then you're a leader. And you can't play the excuses game anymore. If you realize that where you're at right now is on the backside of a bad mistake, even if it wasn't your mistake, it was somebody else's, you need to ask yourself, how do I prevent that from happening again? How do I look at this moment in my life and back up to I went to bed with my gym clothes on so I woke up ready to run? It's a whole lot easier to fight that attitude in those circumstances when you've prepared yourself for it way ahead of time. I'm going to encourage you as a leader, if you don't have a mentor in your life, get one. Do it fast. And if you are a leader and you're not mentoring someone, start now. Do it fast. If the energy is all right here, you're wasting it. You should be using what you've learned, what you've accomplished, impacting the lives of others. And if you don't have a desire to do that, my friend, that's a heart problem. That's a mistake all by itself. And you need to find a mentor in your life who can push you on that you respect enough to go, I hear what you're saying. You're challenging me. I don't like it, but I know you're right. That's what a good coach or a good mentor is going to do in your life. And if you don't have one of those, let's chat. And if you'd like to get immersed in a small group of people who are going to have that very conversation, join us at the Gaylord Texan in March. I'd love for you to be there. You can go to storypoweracademy.com, look for the link for the retreat up top, and just jump in. It's going to be some serious conversation. Body, soul, and spirit. We're not playing any games. We're going hard because we know as a leader, you're influencing other people. And if we can help up-level your skill set and your heart to do that better, we can make the world a better place. I'm J Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast for Tell It Like It Is TV. Have a blessed day.
Subscribe now for access to our extensive media library of leadership lessons promoting faith, family, and freedom. Begin your personal growth plan at storypoweracademy.com for leadership development.